Welcome guys, my name is Brian Feldman and I'm a Microsoft Azure and Security MVP. Today I will show you how to deploy Microsoft Entra External ID using Azure Bicep. So in this example we have a main Bicep file which is our entry point for our deployment. So what we can see is that we have declared a variable which defines our name for our resource group, and after that we create the resource group resource. And when we finally have a resource group, we can deploy the CAM resource, which is the directory resource, which is part of the CAM Bicep module file. And if we look into this file, we can see all the properties associated with it. So we can see the CAM name.onmicrosoft.com. Now it's time to deploy our Azure Bicep template. We simply define the new AZ subscription deployment with a name for our deployment, the location to deploy the resources to, then the template file, which is the main.bicep file, and the template parameter file, which is the main.bicep param. I simply hit the enter button and then we need to wait for the deployment. After waiting a few minutes, we can see that the deployment succeeded. Now it's time to navigate to the Azure portal and see the effect. When checking the Azure portal, we can see that the Microsoft Entra External ID tenant has been created. We can simply open up the external configuration tenant, which redirects us to the tenant. After setting up MFA, I'm just redirected to the Microsoft Entra External ID tenant, which you can see on the top. So in this example, we have an Azure App Service, which I want to protect with the CAM tenant. From the Azure Web App, we can simply set up authentication. So in this example, I'm going to add an identity provider. Then I select the Microsoft Identity Provider. I define an external configuration, which is our CAM tenant. I just let it create a new app registration and then I select the tenant which we have created or deployed using Bicep. I hit the configure button. It does something in the background, but now we need to set up the sign-in process. To enable the self-service sign-up, we just need to create a user flow. I call it my user flow and I just simply hit the create button. Next, I have the possibility to customize the branding. For example, you could add your own logo or change the background colors. I just simply hit the review and configure, and that's all. Then we have some additional checks. I just let them stay on default for this demo and I just simply add. So right now we just configured authentication on our Azure App Service using the CAM tenant. Now it's time to test the identity provider we just configured on the Azure App Service. We can do this by visiting the URL of the Azure App Service. And as you can see, we need to sign in to access the Azure App Service. And most important, we can see that identity provider cloudtips.nl is associated with this Azure App Service. We can also validate this based on the URL in the browser. You can see the camlogin.com. If you don't have an account, you can create one using the user flow we just configured before. After creating an account, I just get the question to be signed in or not. I just simply click on no. And after that we are redirected to the Azure App Service. So right now you have learned how to deploy a CAM tenant using Azure Bicep, and you also learned how to configure an identity provider based on the CAM tenant on your Azure App Service. I hope you liked the video. Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe below and leave a comment if you have a question. See you next time.